Andrew Gilding is having a great time, although he's being very calm about it, isn't he? He's through to his first big TV final, 52 years of age. And it's extraordinary, but his interview after that first semi-final was very level-headed. He's very focused. He told the weekly Dartscast podcast, by the way, that he's very much into psychology, reads a lot about it. So he'll be calming himself down now. What will his mindset be?
Yeah, well, there's no pressure on him, is there? And let's be fair, he's almost wandering around like he's going downtown shopping. It's just nothing is phasing him at the moment.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast, sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss, and joining me as always, Darts statistician and the winner of the two-person team quickfire singles elimination tournament during the Rogue Darts TNF Spring 2023 kickoff night. Burton, DeWitt, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine, but you're not going to mention my blind draw doubles win on Friday night either?
Well, I'm struggling to keep up with all these titles that you're winning. I think you're up there with Gerwyn Price, aren't you, for titles this year?
Yeah, I guess I am, but I've won my two in the space of 4 days. He took him a full 7 days and 15 minutes to get his, so I'm twice as efficient. How are you, Alex?
Well played. Yeah, I'm doing all right, thank you. Congratulations on those wins. I've not won any darts tournaments recently. It's a little bit of a break for our darts team. We're in between seasons, but the PDC isn't in between seasons. The tournaments keep on coming. We've got the Euro Tour and the Development Tour from the weekend to recap. And let's start with the Euro Tour. We just mentioned him, Gerwyn Price. He's gone back-to-back winning in Germany. Second weekend in a row. He beats Michael van Gerwen 8-4 in the final of the International Darts Open on Sunday. And we spoke last week about the best in the world debate. But after winning another title, how far ahead of the rest of the pack is Gerwyn Price right now?
I mean, at the moment, quite a bit. You know, if you look at the 3 Euro Tours this year, okay, he's only won 2 of them, so he's has a defeat, but he still averaged over 108 in that defeat. Across 12 matches, 5 each of the last 2 in those 2, including the loss to Chizzy at the first one, he's averaged over 104 in 9 of those 12 matches. That's only 3 times where he's averaged under 104. One of those was still over a ton, but that's a paltry 100 average in the semifinals a little over a week ago. That's just absurd. That is what MVG was doing at his best. MVG at his best was averaging 104. That means there were tournaments, obviously, where he was over 104 and quite significantly. He would have little runs where 9 out of 12 matches he'd be over 104, and that would be averaged out by having 9 out of 12 matches where he was under. But he was a 104 player 6-7 years ago at his best. This is a much smaller sample size. It is, as I said, just 12 matches. It still isn't that small to be unnoteworthy. This is what MVG did 6-7 years ago. This is not anything we've ever seen Gezi do before. I remember when he became world number 1, I said probably about 6 months later that I can't remember which tournament it was, but I do remember saying that, this is the first time since becoming world number 1 where Gerwyn Price looked like the world number 1. He had looked like it prior to becoming world number 1, but after becoming it, he never did, other than for a short spell that summer. Now, to be fair, we were still playing on an abbreviated schedule and things were out of whack. But since dropping back down to number 4 in the world, that world title money coming off after the World Championships this past January, he has looked not just better than he did before he became number 1, not just better than he did when he was number 1, but better than we've ever seen from him, especially these last couple weeks. Right now, he is playing at that level that MVG played at when MVG was at his best. And that means he is, unless MVG's back to his best, well above anyone else. Because the only other person in history that ever was able to do that over an extended period of time was Phil Taylor. And Phil Taylor's retired, and Michael van Gerwen is not anywhere near that right now. He is closer to it than he was a few years ago, but he's not at that level. Gezi is. Will he maintain it for as long as MVG? I doubt it, but Gezi's proven me wrong before. And the question is, how far is he ahead right now? Right now, he is playing at a level over not a long period of time, but a significant period of time that has only ever been reached by 2 people before. So with that in mind, that means he has to be quite a bit ahead of everyone else at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And I went and had a look back at our question of the week last week to find out the results of our poll. We asked our listeners who is the best player in world darts right now. And it was just after Gerwyn Price had won a night of the Premier League and then he'd won the first of those back-to-back Euro Tour titles. And 58% of our listeners going with Gerwyn Price. And I was a little bit tempted to run the same question this week because I'm sure that number would be even higher from our listeners on who is the best. A lot more going with Gerwyn Price. And I was having a look as well. The averages via Darts Oracle for this season, Gerwyn Price after this weekend just gone, he has gone top of that list, 99.00. Then you've got Gary Anderson, 98.74, Luke Humphries, 97.72, Michael van Gerwen, 97.57. And take out the middle two of those players because you've got Gary Anderson and Luke Humphries, they've both played around 40 games. They're not in the Premier League, whereas Gerwyn Price, Michael van Gerwen, they've played more than 60 games this year. So that bigger sample size for me says that Gerwyn Price is a little bit ahead of the rest of the field, and going off a smaller sample size, and that's the last 4 weeks of events, and still been quite active. Gerwyn Price, he's played half of those games in the last 4 weeks, 32 games he's played, 127, lost 5, and his average over those 32 games, 100.41. And the next three players on that list, Luke Humphries, Dave Chisnall, Nathan Aspinall, over that period, 99 of their averages. So all at a point further back. And that's a little bit of a barometer, if you like, of how far Gerwyn Price is ahead of the rest of the pack over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And no, he's not unbeatable. There have been defeats during that run. There has been the odd game where he's dipped into the low 90s, and he's sometimes been below 90s and into the high 80s, and won on some of those occasions as well. But as you touched on, it is that consistency which stands out the most. The run that he's having, 20 of those 32 games, he has averaged over the 100 mark, and half of those it's been over the 105. And we say the 100 average nowadays is a lot more common. A lot more players are doing it, but it's kind of what we expect from the top players now, to be hitting 3 figures. But I still think that topping that 105 mark is the benchmark now for a world-class performance. And the frequency that Price is throwing those big averages, it does put him at the top right now. And he did it in 3 of his 5 games in Riesa at the weekend. Another one was 104 average, so very close to 4 out of 5 there. And in the final with Michael van Gerwen, just touching on that as well, you look at the doubles percentage for MVG, 4 out of 21. There were some chances that he gave away in the early stages of that, but you've got to give some credit to Gerwyn Price. First leg, 1-3-4 finish, tops to do it, and to break in that opening leg. And he is just playing with so much confidence right now, and he's enjoying the game. And you've only got to look at these Euro tours, because, okay, when you're winning, you want to keep playing, but at the time of recording, he is going to be in Munich this weekend. That makes it 4 out of 4 Euro tours this year that he's played in. And you go back to last year, he skipped 6 of them and withdrew from 6 of them. So that's quite a worrying sign. I think that he is playing in a lot more this year. He feels that there's more gears to get through. And right now, I don't think the gap is a huge one, but it's certainly noticeable. And we're seeing that with what Gerwyn Price is doing, winning more titles.
Yes, indeed. And we'll see how much longer this will continue. We might have to ask, is he up to MVG's at his best if he keeps this up for some time? But for now, I think we're in agreement. But let's talk one more thing about the Euro Tour, because this past weekend was not just any old Euro Tour event, but it was the 100th event in the little over a decade history of the Euro Tour. Obviously, we would have hit that milestone a couple years ago, but for COVID, it did finally get hit. What are your personal favorite moments, though, from the first 100 tournaments in Euro Tour history?
Yeah, and I was thinking of this question at the weekend, and why we didn't talk about it last week, but I guess we have had the 100 now, so we can look back on the first 100 Euro Tours. And 2 moments that immediately stick out for me, they both involve 3 bullseyes. You've got Simon Whitlock taking out the 150 last year, ball to win a match on the Euro Tour. It was one of the nominees for our checkout of the year. And going back a few years before that, the late Kyle Anderson, 2016, 4-2 down to Michael van Gerwen. I think it was the quarterfinals. Takes out 121 on the ball, 72. You wouldn't expect it to end up on a ball finish, but single 8, single 14 ball. And then the next leg, another 1-2-1 on the ball. So 3 consecutive legs, 1 on the ball, something that you very rarely see happen. So they're 2 moments that stick out straight away. And just going back through the years as well, because I was having a little look on YouTube earlier today, looking at some Euro Tour highlights from years gone by. And one of the big contests, we might end up seeing it on the Euro Tour again this year, because he's back playing on it later this month. You've got a final that we had between Michael van Gerwen and Gary Anderson in the early days of the Euro Tour, and Michael van Gerwen averaging 117 in that game. And this is around the time when Gary Anderson was the world champion. He was on his way to winning his second world title, and this was the battle of the two very best players. So that was a game that sticks out. Another final, 2018, Max Hopp, and I remember we had him on not long after he won this title, his first Euro Tour title. Again, that bullseye finish 1-2-1 to beat Michael Smith 8-7, and crazy to think really that in a couple of weeks' time it will be 5 years ago that he won that title. Seems a long time ago now. And more finals that I want to give a mention to. Of course, I've got to mention Peter Wright 6, Michael van Gerwen 0. That scoreline reversed at the weekend, but back in 2017, Peter Wright argument saying that he was the best player in the world, and he proved it in that game, winning 6-0 in the final. We've had Mensah Suljovic winning in Austria in a last leg decider in a final against MVG. There's been other players make their breakthroughs, the likes of Jose de Souza, Joe Cullen, winning Euro Tours and then going on to win major titles. Devon Peterson's run to the title is one that sticks out for me as well. And to think that when we started out the Euro Tour 2012, Justin Pipe, the winner of the first one, we've now had 100 events. The crowds, okay, Friday afternoons can be a bit quiet, but when you get to that Saturday night and the final day on Sunday, you're seeing thousands of people pack out in these venues. And these events, they have become a lot more important. They feel bigger, they feel more important now, and we've got more coverage for them as well. We've always had the streams on PDC TV for a lot of years, but now we are getting TV coverage. There's some here in the UK, other countries in Europe. The production of these events has improved as the years have gone by, and who knows where we're going to go with the Euro Tour. We've got 13 events again this year. We spoke with Rod Harrington a few years ago. His dream was to see the European Tour get even bigger, perhaps 15 to 20 events all around Europe, and maybe one day we'll get a Euro Tour in Poland, in France, Spain, and Italy. It's probably a little while off, but I don't think we've reached the ceiling yet on how far the European Tour can go, and the interest is picking up in these events. More darts fans are getting behind it, and rightly so, because they do provide a lot of quality darts to watch weekend in, weekend out. We've got another one this weekend, and long may it continue.
Yeah, and you said a lot of them that I was going to say there, but I have a couple others. But I'm just because you said it doesn't mean I'm not going to say them. You mentioned Mensah, that there's quite a few moments involving Mensah, because until recently he was probably the third most successful player on the European Tour. Obviously MVG number 1, and then probably for a while was Chizzy number 2. We could also eventually Peter Wright join that, Michael Smith, but Mensah was right there as well, and it started with that breakthrough in Riesa, where we just were back in 2016. He had lost umpteen semifinals before beating James Wilson in the semi, survived match starts against Kim Huybrechts in that final for pinning double 16 to win it himself. And he followed that up by making a couple more finals, nearly beat MVG in a high-quality match later that year. But that was the breakthrough for him. Not to mention, his home title in 2019, or 2018 rather, a lot of close calls at home, a lot of early exits at home, but to come back, beat MVG from behind in the final to win in front of his home crowd was a huge moment in Euro Tour history. But wasn't the first person to lift a title in front of his home crowd, and that honor, of course, goes to Max Hopp, who in 2018 won a title in Germany, his first. He did win another title later that year in the Players' Championship events in the UK. So much for him only being able to win in front of the German crowds, like everyone said. No, he won a Players' Championship event in the UK, or maybe that one was in Ireland. But still, he won a Players' Championship event, which did not have a German home crowd to cheer him on. But his breakthrough was that title in April 2018, where he kept hitting those 121 finishes. We had him on right after that. But that was such a huge moment, especially since that was probably at the peak of the complaints about all those German players getting into the events. Now look where we are 5 years later. We've had numerous other German players make the seeds. We have other German players on the up. Pascal Ruprecht's coming up now as another young German talent, which we'll hopefully see him start to perform more on the Euro Tour as well. But it didn't start with Max Hopp, but his title started that real avalanche of German players breaking through. We still haven't seen another one win a title, but we've seen some of them come close. Obviously, Gabriel Clemens, who's made multiple finals, and Martin Schindler being the heads of those. But again, it started with Max Hopp's title. What happened a week after Max Hopp's title? You mentioned, a few of those breakthroughs. I had Devin Peterson on here. Jose's was a good one, Joe Collins. But you didn't mention the breakthrough of the ferret, Johnny Clayton, which was just 1 week after Max Hopp's. And it's easy to be overshadowed because of how monumental Hopp's was. But looking in retrospect, I think Clayton's was even more monumental because this was his first title on the stage, and everything he's done since then started with that. Who did he beat first match on the way to that title? Max Hopp. 1 week on from Max Hopp winning a title, he lost Johnny Clayton's first match, Max Hopp's second match, to Johnny Clayton. Clayton then averaged 105 and beating Wade. He beat Ian White. I don't know if Ian White's ever done anything on the Euro Tour. Oh yeah, only made 4 consecutive finals in the quarters. Then he beat Mensur Suljovic, who we both talked about, and then he beat his compatriot Gerwyn Price in the final. Johnny Clayton's breakthrough 1 week after Max Hopp, easy one to forget. You mentioned Kyle Anderson, the bullseye on 72, part of 3 consecutive bullseye finishes as he came back from 4-2 down to beat MVG. But it's not just MVG losing that's memorable. I was there in the crowd when MVG ended the most amazing curse in Euro Tour history, the curse of 5 years and a day. 5 years, 0 months, 1 day, 501 without a 9-dart leg of 501. MVG ending that against Ryan Joyce. And I'll just say one more match, another amazing final, that Peter Wright Benito Van de Pas final in Saarbrücken 6 years ago. Benito averaged 110 and somehow lost to Peter Wright, who averaged in the mid-90s, as Peter Wright just hit all the right shots at the right time. Something that I don't even know if Benito has recovered from since then, because that wasn't the precipitous for his decline, but it followed shortly thereafter. And for Peter Wright, it was part of his breakthrough year where he won the UK Open for his first major and put him in that position to a couple of years later win a world title.
Well, there's been plenty of memorable moments on the European Tour. Let's get to our first guest on this week's show, and a player that will be hoping to make his own memorable moments when he makes his return to that stage this weekend. Here's our chat with the Dutch Dragon, Jules van Dongen. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the Dutch Dragon, Jules van Dongen. Thanks for the time, Jules. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, and we're talking only a few days before you make your return to the big stage in the PDC out in Munich for the German Darts Grand Prix. How are you feeling ahead of your return to the European Tour this weekend?
Yeah, excited to be back. It's almost a year ago I was on the Euro Tour, so it's a great feeling to be able to be in that stage again and see what we could do.
And lots to catch up on since we last had you on the show with my co-host Burton just after you won your tour card at Q School last year. A week or so after that, the PDC announced that tour card holders who'd qualified for Lakeside, they could still play at the rescheduled WDF World Championship. How pleased were you to still get that chance to play at Lakeside?
Yeah, that was great. I wasn't really expecting it, but then kind of heard the rumors, and so there was always a little bit of hope. At least I can check that off my bucket list to be able to play at Lakeside and all the history. And obviously, it wasn't the outcome I wanted, but yeah, it was great. It was definitely an amazing experience, and then all the people involved in the WDF are just great people, amazing people, and yeah, I was glad to be part of it.
We'll come back to that as well. And before Lakeside, it was a first taste of the Pro Tour in the PDC. When we spoke before, you admitted you went to Q School last year for the first time for the experience, maybe not expecting a tour card so soon. So how challenging was it then mapping out your schedule for the rest of 2022, all these events, and deciding how you were going to go about it being based in America?
Yeah, very hard. Very difficult. Decided to go full time. And looking back, I don't think it was even a choice. Seeing how much I'm gone from home and how much I travel, it's just coming from outside of Europe. I think it's pretty much impossible to, if you decide to stay in the US or in Canada or Australia, it's going to be so tough to do anything on the side. That's been a challenge, but it's crazy. It's been almost a year and a half now. Time flies by.
And do you feel like you're getting used to life on the tour now, or is that time away still something that you may be juggling with as well?
Yeah, it's difficult, and I think it's more difficult when you lose a lot, when you don't get the results you want, or it's not really paying off. It makes it very difficult mentally. I think it's heavily underestimated how mental the sport is, and what it could, the effects it can have on someone's well-being, I guess. I definitely. Especially the first year, definitely struggled with that a lot.
Well, let's look back at that first year, and in particular those first few weekends on the Pro Tour. What were they like? A new experience for you? And I think one of your first wins was on the stream as well against Martin Schindler, and then the UK Open follows pretty soon after that, and you're on the main stage there as well.
Yeah, it took a little bit to get my first win. Got close a couple times, but same with the UK Open. I won my opening round on the second stage, but it was anything but good. But I think the key for me is to find a way to get more relaxed and not be so tight on the board. And part of that I think also comes with experience. Something I definitely didn't have going into the PDC, and something I still feel like I still lack. So yeah, anything on the stage, anything on the I try to play as much as I can, like competitively under pressure, rather than just practice for hours where you have no pressure. So that's looking back, like UK Open was just, I was very nervous. It was difficult, but I try to enjoy it at the same time while you're up there. But yeah, it's difficult.
And talking of playing on the stages, we mentioned it. You did get the chance to play at Lakeside last year. The result didn't go your way, but you were one of quite a few North American players that made that trip over. I think there was around 8 or 9 of you in the men's and the ladies tournaments. What was it like being there at Lakeside that week?
Yeah, it was just the history and the everything around it, the hotel, everything feels like it's stuck in time. It's pretty cool to see. And then I had Danny Baggage was there, the support, so that was great. My parents, my wife was there. Unfortunately, the attendance wasn't very good in the first couple days. So hopefully that will be different for them this year, which I think it will. So just glad I was there, that I could say I played there, and I only look back and think about the positives that I got out of it.
Well, let's go to an event that was a little closer to home for you last year, and that was the US Darts Masters. Again, another iconic venue in sport, Madison Square Garden. How special was that week for you to play in that event as well?
Yeah, I've never been to Madison Square Garden, so I didn't know what to expect, and also didn't know what to expect when it came to attendance. If there were going to be 100 people or 3,000, I had no idea. And it was definitely above expectation. As a player, for my feeling being on the stage, it looked like sold out. It was great, and I'm playing in front of the home crowd, and I didn't have a good start, and then I got back in the match, and getting the whole crowd behind you, and I think at the end I just fell short against Michael, but for me it was looking back, I achieved what I wanted to. I didn't just roll over. Gave him a good match. I came close to winning, so. And I pissed him off a bit, so that was fun.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that. The week didn't pass without a little bit of controversy, let's put it that way, between you and Michael van Gerwen. He wins 6-4 in that first round, and then he says that you don't have 20% of the talent he has. Were you surprised he came out with those comments?
No, not really. I honestly think it's not something he does. He doesn't do that on purpose. He doesn't really want to hurt my feelings or anything like that. I think he's been the alpha for that long, and so it's hard for him when the crowd is not behind him. When he does feel obviously he's a much better player, but it almost went wrong for him, and I don't think he likes that. And then, that's how he shows his frustrations, I guess. But when I first saw it, I was annoyed by it, and but then later on, I saw the fun side of it. He's probably not wrong. Just the percentage putting that on there is a bit. It's not smart, I guess. You can't really put a percentage on that. And funny thing is, I played him a couple of weeks ago and had a match dart against him, and I wanted it to go in so bad, but I made him sweat, so it was good.
You're definitely getting closer. We saw you in the crowd as well with one of the 180 signs, and written on it, MVG is 1% as good looking as JVD. So it looks like you did take those comments with a pinch of salt as well.
Yeah, one of my friends made that sign and put it in my hand and said, "Here, let's make a picture." And we made a picture. The joke, I can't take credits for the joke. But my buddy was waving it towards him when he was playing, and he saw it and started laughing. So there's definitely no hard feelings between us. I respect him a lot. I think he just likes to remind everyone who's the best, I guess.
Yeah, and we saw as well you raised money for charity with the shirt that you wore as well. I mean, in the end, how much did you end up raising, and who were the charities that benefited from it as well?
So it was quite a bit, but the way it works with eBay is that you don't have to pay up front. So some of the top bidders fell through, unfortunately. But still we raised a good amount. So ultimately something positive came out of it. So that was, and for me, it's free publicity. My name was out there, people talking about it. So it's all good.
Good to hear. And a few weeks later, you were back on the stage, another debut, this time the PDC World Cup alongside Danny Baggish. You lost out in a decider in the first round, but what was it like for you getting to represent the USA in such a big event?
Yeah, I would say that was the one tournament that was a bit overwhelming once I got on stage, especially playing in pairs. And when you're playing a second, you just get less darts at the board. Scoring, I was playing pretty well. Just my doubles I just had zero rhythm, zero. I struggled with that quite a bit. I think if I only hit 30% of my doubles, we would have easily won that game. But that was tough. It was probably the toughest loss I've had since I played. I really struggled with that, losing that one and the way we lost, and Danny missing that 160. I thought he was going to save us, and then them hitting a 180 to set up 40. It just nothing fell our way. But I felt we were the better team. So hopefully this year, which it looks like it's going to be Danny and I again, we could do a little bit better, which I'm pretty confident about. I think I'm in a better spot this year than I was last year. And Danny has been playing with a lot of confidence, been winning tournaments here in the US again. So, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was going to come on to this year's World Cup. As the only American tour card holder this year, you're going to be putting on that USA shirt again in June. We're not sure who your partner's going to be yet. You seem to think it's going to be Danny Baggish, though. And what did you make of the changes to the World Cup this year? All pairs, and you can have a group stage, so at least 2 games this year.
Yeah, I don't think there will be anyone complaining about that. It's a really good change. Gives us the opportunity to play at least twice, taking a bit of pressure off. Think off yourself, and that's the charm of the World Cup, playing in pairs. I think the singles were, they were short format as well, and so I think this is really good. It'll be it'll just be a lot more excitement as well. We might see more upsets as well, I think. So that's going to be great.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And just lastly, on last year, going back to the summer, you were back in America and we saw an unlikely bromance, we'll call it, between you and Danny Jansen, a young Dutch tour card holder, also new to the tour last year. It looked like you guys had a lot of fun from the pictures you were posting on Twitter as well.
Yeah. So he came over for 5 weeks, and it might have actually been longer. And I said, let's go play some soft tip tournaments, and so his sponsor got him a set of darts, and he throws so hard that he would break every round. He would break a point or two, having to put new points on. But we actually, he won a couple singles tournaments. I did. We won pretty much everywhere we went. We won the doubles. We had a lot of fun. And then he fell in love as well. So now he's back here a little bit more often. So he's a really good kid with a bright future, I think. We talk quite a bit. When I'm out there, I try to go visit him. He has great parents. Just lovely family all around.
Good to hear. And another player you've had over in the States more recently, Simon Whitlock, and like with Danny, it looked like you two were cleaning up in the tournaments as well.
Yeah, it was great. We played the Las Vegas Open. We won doubles, and we won triples with his girlfriend. We had a blast. He had a really good time. He came out here as well. We did an exhibition out here in St. Louis, which, for us was kind of the first time doing something like that. And it definitely was a success. And we're looking to do more in the future, bring more players over and combine it with vacation or whatever and play some tournaments. So, really looking forward to that.
Well, let's look ahead then. I'm sure 2 dates in the diary you're excited for this year are going to be the US Darts Masters and the World Cup. So how important is it for you to have this Euro Tour to play in this weekend to get that stage time beforehand?
Yeah, very important. I think I almost forgot when I played the UK Open 2 months ago. I was warming up. I was playing really well, and I stepped on that stage, and I felt I was throwing with chopsticks because it was just so foreign to me again. It was almost a year ago that I played on the stage. So I think, the more stage experience I can get leading up to this tournament, the more comfortable I'll be during those tournaments. So I have the cross-border challenge here in New York coming up, and then this weekend the Euro Tour. So that'll be at least 2 tournaments to get that feel.
And just touching on this Euro Tour, I was having a look at your run to qualifying. You beat Scott Williams, Xian Van Veen, and the game with Xian, 100+ average as well. When you go to a Euro Tour, do you think back to those wins, how you qualified, or is it a completely different tournament now that you are up on the stage?
I mean, I think for your confidence, it's good to remind yourself that, who you beat and how you beat them, and that you're there for a reason, and that, there's no reason I can't replicate that and do that on that stage. And that's, so it's a combination of having confidence once you step on that stage and staying relaxed and calm and not put too much pressure on yourself and just try to play your game. But it's easier said than done.
Definitely is. And as you're back on stage this weekend, we're going to get to hear your walk on as well, Out of the Frame by Miss Kate. When we first heard it, a lot of people were saying, is Jules giving Dirk van Dijvenbode a run for his money? Talk to us about the choice behind that song.
So I like a little bit of the harder style, and I'm actually working with an English DJ, but he lives in Germany, and it's actually a tad harder than what I had before, and he's kind of customizing a song for me that involves the Dutch drag, and it's an up tempo song, so it's gonna be pretty loud. But yeah, he's a great DJ. I discovered through Spotify and reached out to him, and so now we're kind of working together. His name is Salmonator, but it probably won't ring a bell to most people. But definitely worth checking out.
Nice. And is that going to be ready in time for this weekend? When are you hoping to make that debut with that song?
Yeah, the hope is that it's ready this weekend. He's working on it now, and then yeah, kind of in return, I'll play with his logo, with his name on my jersey in New York to kind of give him some exposure. So that's going to be kind of a good win-win for both of us. It'd be great.
Well, two more before we let you go, and still a lot to play for this year, but you'll be aware of the results you need to keep your tour card. So how are you approaching the rest of this year? Is the focus on the top 64, is it? Or let's just try and get to the World Championship, or have you got another goal in mind for this year?
Yeah, the ultimate goal is the World Championship. That's my number one goal. I think last year I put a lot of pressure on having the tour card, keeping the tour card, and right now I wouldn't say I couldn't care less. Obviously, you want to keep your tour card and you want to stay in, but I think the mentality has to be that when I started playing 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, I said I have a 5-year plan, and with or without the tour card, those 5 years I'm trying to get better and improve. And I don't think my tour card is that important yet in those first 5 years. Obviously, after those 5 years, I want to be steady in the top 64. That's ultimately the first goal. But I'm still learning, and for the rest of the year, I play freely. I'm just going to try to enjoy as much as I can. But obviously, the better results you have, the more you enjoy it. So, just trying my best. And if it doesn't work out, I go back to Q school, and I'll approach it the same as 2 years ago. I'll see what happens, and it's not going to define me. It's not going to change my 5-year goal, I guess. So, we'll see. I'm a little bit more relaxed about it now than I was a year ago.
And lastly, before we let you go, one more back to the US Darts Masters. I'm sure you'd rather spend the whole weekend up on the stage, but if you do end up back in the crowd, what's going to be on the 180 sign that you hold up this time round?
That depends on who I play and how they treat me, right? If they're nice, I might put something nice on there. But no, we'll see. I'm one of those players. Obviously, I'm not recognized by many, so like I enjoy watching darts as well live. So like the UK Open, I watched all the sessions. I go sit in the crowd. I enjoy it, take it all in. Might as well if you're there. We'll see. Definitely being amongst your own people, the American people. It's great. It's great to chat with everyone and socialize. So yeah. Unfortunately, the beers are $16 over there a can, so that's not great.
No, I need to get a discount on them. Well, Jules, it's a pleasure to chat to you. We do appreciate your time and wish you all the best for this weekend in Munich and what else is to come in 2023 as well.
Thank you very much.
Free beer, anyone? Now that I've got your attention, the weekly Dartscast are excited to be partnering up with the guys at Beer52 to offer our listeners a free case of beers. Head on over to beer52.com/darts and cover the postage cost of £5.95 to claim your free case of beers from our good friends at Beer52. I've just got on board with Beer52, and as a member each month, they send me a case of unique and varied beers from a different part of the world. Imagine that. Each month trying out beers from a different country. In the last 10 years, Beer52 have been to 40 different countries, including the US, Australia and Germany, and they've also included a range of breweries in the UK too. So, to claim your free case of beers, go to beer52.com/darts. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the darts and enjoy your beers, and let's get back to the rest of the show.
Thanks again to Jules for joining us now, continuing our look back at the weekend and to events in Milton Keynes. We saw the first weekend of the development tour, and what a weekend it was for Luke Littler, the 16-year-old, making his debut, winning 2 of the 5 titles at the weekend. He's opened up a big lead already at the top of the development tour order of merit, and it brings us to our question of the week. Will Luke Littler be a PDC tour card holder? And we've put the date for the start of this week, April 3rd, 2024, next year.
Yes. What's the next question?
Right, let's get to our picks for night 10.
I mean, you can't read too much into one weekend. And you never can, unless it is the last weekend of the season. But you can't discount it. It is more than a sixth of the season. It's basically 20% of the season. What did he do? He won 2 titles, made another final. The other 2 events, he was terrible. He lost to the quarterfinals and the quarterfinals, playing really, really well. And he's now nearly 4,000 pounds up on anyone else. Granted, it's very close for second and third. So even if he maintains that lead, let's see more. What is he up on fourth? But person in second, the person in third, they have tour cards. The person in fifth, the person in sixth, they have tour cards. So really, he's up pretty much 5,000 and change on anyone who doesn't have a tour card, other than one person, Christopher Tunders, who beat him in the quarterfinals. So that first match, really bad match for Luke Littler, averaged a mere 93 in losing 5 legs to 3. It was just an absolutely brilliant weekend for Luke Littler. And that's the thing, like the fact that for a tour card, he's in essence 5,000 pounds clear as things stand is ridiculous. That means he could skip a weekend and almost certainly still be a tournament or 2 tournaments ahead of anyone else. He could skip 2 weekends and probably still be fine as long as he plays average at the other couple weekends that he does go to. It's going to take a lot to deny him. And if you just look at the statistics, over the course of the weekend, the 5 events, he was more than 2 points clear of Wessel Nijman, who is second in averages. He's more than 3 points clear of anyone else. And averages aren't everything, but your average tells the story. And if you're that much better, if you're 3 points clear of pretty much everyone, 2.5 clear of second place, over 3 points clear of everyone else, that means you are in essence getting one more dart at double on average every leg than everyone else is, which means even if you miss, you on average can spare a dart. And that's really a scary level to be ahead of someone, to be ahead of the entire field. And that's, if you look at some of the best comparisons, if you look in the women's series, what we've seen from Bo Greaves, she's, 5 points clear of everyone else. And that is nearly unbeatable over the course of a season. Yes, you can get opportunities, but you have to be on your best. And it's because not just that, but the consistency that she plays at, and the fact that when she needs to, she lifts her game. Well, what did Luke Littler do when he needed to? He lifted his game. Even the matches he lost, he was still playing really well. 93, 6.5 points better than the guy who ended up going on to win the title. 93.5 against Dylan Slevin, who we've talked about. He's done well on the Pro Tour this year on his first year as a tour card holder. And then just a tad under 93, but Wessel Nijman played really well in that match, averaged just a tick under 100. And, credit for Wessel Nijman. He's the guy who's second in averages. He's 6th so far in the order of merit, even though he hasn't made a final. So it shows that, he is playing really well. And he, it's surprising that he didn't get through to a final. It's surprising that he didn't win a title because he also had a very good weekend. That's why he was able to get to 6th without even making a final. But Luke Littler was still that much above him and that much above everyone else. Over the course of the weekend, there was only 2 matches under 85. One of those was a 73. He won that match 4-0. I don't know what else to say. The answer is clearly yes. His lead, it's not insurmountable, but it's pretty close to, especially when you consider most of the people chasing him have tour cards to begin with. I would be very surprised if he doesn't have a tour card. I would be very surprised if he doesn't make the World Championships. Yes, there may be a regression. Yes, he might, as the pressure gets to him, he might lose some matches later in the year. But he has such a lead, and all it's going to take is a couple more good runs, not even good weekends, but good runs, and that'll put him over the line. He will be a tour card holder next year, assuming he wants it. It would be well-deserved if and when he becomes one.
Yeah, I think we should have maybe made this question a bit more challenging and said, is he going to finish top of the development tour? Because in terms of the tour card race, as you outlined there, he's got such a big lead after one weekend. And looking at our poll for the question of the week, a lot of our listeners agreeing, 86% saying, yes, Luke Littler will have a tour card this time next year, 14% going with no, and a few of our listeners getting in touch as well. Rachel Gallagher saying, I hope so, as it would be quite funny to see him play on the tour without ever going to Q School. Of course, he only turned 16 after Q School this year, so wasn't able to play in it this year. Callum Wilkinson, who played on the development tour at the weekend, he had a close eye of him. He said after watching him this weekend, yes, he is going to have his tour card. And give a mention to another statistician on Twitter, Colin Harris at FEBS Data. He does a lot of great work. Do go and give him a follow. One of his tweets from the weekend about the development tour, and you can see just from that how much of an impact Luke Littler has already made after just one weekend. His match winning percentage, 91.67, puts him top. And okay, it is a smaller sample size than a lot of other players, being only 5 events, but you also look at the match averages, looking across every match that he's played in across all the development tours, and this only goes back to 2019 because of Dart Connect. But top of that list, you've got Josh Rock, 94.56, Luke Littler straight in at number 2, 92.74, and he's won virtually everything there is to win at a youth level: the JDC Super 16, their World Championship, the World Masters Youth Europe Cup boys, and he's in the semi-finals of the WDF World Youth Championships coming up later this year. But in terms of the development tour, $7,000 banked. And you look at last year as well, I think this was quite interesting to point out as well. You look at the final development tour order of merit, $7,000 would have put him in 7th place already, and that's just from one weekend. And you think you've got 4 more weekends to come. He's in such a good position to not just get that tour card, but also finish in the top 2 and get to Ali Pali as well, which again would be an incredible story. Probably the youngest player, one of the youngest players to play in the PDC World Championship. So I think looking at it another way, in terms of finishing top, Josh Rock, I think, is going to be one of his biggest challenges on paper. But you look at his schedule for the year, he missed the weekend because he was playing in the Euro Tour. He's going to be missing the next weekend of events, and I think he can play the 3rd and the 5th weekends. The 4th one does have a little bit of an overlap with the World Match Play, so I'm not quite sure if he'll be up for doing the travelling in between those to play in it. So I think now the target's got to be to finish top, and I'm not sure if that gets him in the Grand Slam this year like it did last year. But again, what story would that be? So I think we'll see later on in the year if the pressure's going to come. But I think at this moment in time, given the lead that he's got, if anything, going into the next weekend, he can play with a lot of freedom, because that lead that he's got is going to take some doing to eat away at from the rest of the field.
Well, speaking of eating away at a big lead, let's get on Premier League, because that's what Gezzy's been doing the last few weeks, outperforming MVG 3 weeks in a row. And now suddenly it's just a title between the two in terms of the points. 25 for MVG, 20 for Gerwyn Price, tie for 3rd between Michael Smith and Nathan Aspinall as we enter night 10 at the Utilita Arena in Birmingham. And, well, I guess we should do our picks because... well, we had a rare good night last week. I'll let you tell about that in a second. Let's see if we can make it 2 weeks in a row where we do all right. First match, it is that person on top of the table, Michael van Gerwen, going against Chris Dobie in 6th. How do you see this one?
Yeah, what a week we had. Probably our best week, actually, in terms of the picks so far this year. You got 7 points, I got 5 points. And, of course, last week we both went with the same player each game, so it could have gone very wrong. But 3 out of 4, you had 2 correct scores, I had 1. So let's see if we can keep that going. And first game, we'll see Michael van Gerwen against Chris Dobie. And I was having a look earlier to see if MVG had lost first game in back-to-back weeks in the Premier League in this new format, the nightly tournaments. And he actually did it at the end of last season, the last 2 weeks of the regular season. And then what did he do after that? He went and won the whole tournament on finals night. So go and figure that one out. But he's just made the final on the Euro Tour. I don't think he's entered the Euro Tour this weekend. So he's going to go into this one knowing that he's got the weekend off and he can come out all guns blazing. And I think that MVG is going to take this one. Chris Dobie's got a good record recently against Michael van Gerwen. Of course, whitewashed him 6-0. He beat him in the first week's final. But I think MVG gets the win here. I'm going to go 6-3 to the Green Man.
Do I want to risk that we're going to make it 2 weeks in a row we pick exactly the same things? You know what? No, I'll go for the upset here. I went for the upset quite a bit recently with MVG. But I've really been impressed with how Chris Dobie's been playing. He hasn't been getting as many results as his performances have merited. If you look at averages so far in this Premier League, he would be in the top 4. He is 4th, and he's just a tick behind Gerwyn Price. And I think Gerwyn Price has been doing okay this year. I don't know, nothing too special so far in season 2023. Barely doing better than Chris Dobie. But Dobie is 4th in averages, and he's lost plenty of times with that 99-100 when he lost those 5 quarterfinals in a row. Another quarterfinal loss last week, it means that Dobie is now a full 5 points adrift, but he's playing well enough. MVG, still a little bit of inconsistency in his game, maybe as the pressure has been off recently because he's had such a lead and the goal is to win the title at the end of the year, that maybe he's taken the foot off the accelerator. So, you know what, I'll go against you. I'll go for the upset, and I'm going to go Chris Dobie to win this 6-5.
Well then, second quarter-final to make our picks for, and it is 4th against 5th in the table. Nathan Aspinall against Johnny Clayton. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, so much for Johnny Clayton being done and dusted entering last week. He wins the title. Now suddenly he's 3 points adrift, and he has that opportunity right here to make up 2/3 of those points before the first hour of the competition's even out. Aspinall, it's been a uneven season so far for him, I think is the best way to put it. He's not strung together good matches. Yes, he made a final on the second night, but he's had a lot of semifinal exits, including that performance where he had the lowest average in Premier League history. He's had some highs, but it's not been consistent. Look at last week, 103 in the first match. Okay, he averaged 99 in the semis, which is probably the best 2 matches he's put together. But Michael Smith was always in the ascendancy in that match. Previous week, 101 first round, dropped to 93, and it was a bad 93 against MVG. MVG won it 6-0, averaging a 15 dart leg across the course of that match. That consistency's been missing. Clayton's going to come in on a high. Aspinall, it depends which Aspinall shows up. If Nathan Aspinall shows up ready for a first-round match, he'll win this. But I just don't know, and I can't trust it right now. And I think Clayton, now that he's back within 3 points, is setting his sights on the top 4, and he's going to be focused and ready for this match. I'm going to go the Ferret 6-3.
Well, if there's going to be any game that entices you to watch the Premier League this week, then on paper it's going to be this one, given the league positions in the table. And props to Johnny Clayton last week, winning the night last week, jumping up to 5th in the table and going into this week just 3 points off the top 4. And we said last week he needed to put a run together, and he did that. And 3 points off third place Michael Smith as well. So this single match, it's not make or break. It might look like it is, but if Peter Wright can knock off Michael Smith later in the night, then the gap is likely still going to be 3 points going into next week in the Premier League in terms of the playoffs if he does lose that game. And yeah, I hope all that made sense. But let's get to the pick. And we both backed Johnny Clayton last week, and I'm going to keep it going this week. Both of these players lost on the Euro Tour at the weekend to Martin Schindler, who had that run to the semi-finals. So in honour of that, and one of our guests coming up in a moment being from Germany, my score is going to be in German. I'm going to go for 6-4 to the Ferret.
Ooh, I need to learn my German so I know exactly what you pick now.
5-all.
All right. Well, third match, Dimitri Vandenberg down to 7th, 6 points adrift, going against the man who's been pretty much on fire recently, having won 2 of the last 3 nights, Gerwyn Price, up to 2nd in the table. How do you see this one?
Well, looking back at last week, we saw Dimitri's streak end of win-loss in the quarterfinals, lost to Michael Smith with that sub-90 average, and the way that Gerwyn Price is playing at the moment, we spoke about it at the top of the show. Dimitri's going to need to put at least 8 or 9 points on that average here, and he starts the night 6 points off the top 4, so a very similar position to what Johnny Clayton was in last week, down in 7th, but a title can put him right back in contention. But for me, this isn't the game to start that run. The Gerwyn Price is a man in form, back-to-back Euro Tours, 2nd in the Premier League table, looking well on course to get in those playoffs for the first time, and I don't think he's going to relent anytime soon, so I'm going to go 6-3 to the Iceman.
Well, maybe this is the week where we're going different. maybe it's call it a feeling, but I just think Demi's going to get back on that track, and it's the reverse fixtures this time around, so it's a reverse to the normal order for Demi, average it going quarterfinal losses in the even number weeks. Now in the reverse fixtures, he's going to do it in the odd number weeks. We're in an even number week. What does that mean? He gets through the first round. He gets the 2 points, and he pulls off a huge upset against the odd fire Gerwyn Price. I'm just going based on the fact that it's an even number week and things are flipped. So I'm going to go Demi 6 legs to 5 to thereabouts stay in the race for the playoffs.
Well, I've got to say, your predictions sound a lot more exciting if they happen than mine do. Let's get to the last quarterfinal, and it is the battle of the last 2 world champions, Peter Wright against Michael Smith. How do you see this one going?
There's been some signs that Peter Wright is not necessarily getting back to his best, but getting back to a level that can contend with the best players in the world. He didn't play that poorly against Gezi last week. It wasn't enough. But he also, he won a couple matches on the Euro Tour. He didn't let a big lead slip away. And I don't think his confidence is back, but I think he's probably now seeing that he's on the right side of the slump. He's now back on the increase, just needs to keep trucking along, keep pushing forward, and things will start to click. But Michael Smith is starting to look like the world number 1. He played very well in Berlin. Yes, he didn't win the title, but he played 3 good matches, 1 great match in the semifinal, but 2 other good matches. But that's and it could not have come at a better time for him, especially since he had lost to Dobie in the quarterfinals back-to-back nights. Not playing great, but not playing poorly, but not playing anywhere near his best in those. Now he's starting to get some results, and now he's starting to play well again. Doesn't look like the world number 1, but as I said a few weeks ago, it's about setting the pace of the season, figuring out how to get your priorities in line now that you've achieved what you wanted to achieve. I think Michael Smith is starting to figure that out. It will take time before he looks like his best again. And, again, I said earlier in the show about Gerwyn Price, didn't look like the world number 1 when he was number 1. I think it might be similar for Michael Smith, but he's starting to get there. And this is the perfect match to just take some of that pressure off. I'm going to go Bully Boy to win at 6-2. Again, I think Peter Wright will play better than we've seen him for most of the last couple months, but it won't be enough.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that. And Peter Wright, we did see at the weekend, make the quarterfinals on the Euro Tour, one of his best runs of the year so far in terms of the Pro Tour events. And the first game, he had a few good finishes in there, but looking at how he performed on Sunday, 2 games, won a slugfest with Alan Suter 6-4. They both averaged in the mid to low 80s. And then Peter Wright didn't pick it up in the quarterfinals, another mid-80 average and a 6-0 defeat to Michael van Gerwen. So for me, it still feels like Peter Wright is quite far away from rediscovering his best game, that consistent high standard. And much like the last game, we're trying to, you're trying to find some form and confidence, put a run together, playing the world number 1, the world champion Michael Smith. That's not the game that you want first up. And Michael Smith made the final last week. He's jumped up a spot, 4th to 3rd. He'll want to keep that push going for the playoffs. And on paper, when you're playing bottom of the table, he's got 2 points. This is a game he has to win. So the pressure is going to be on him, I expect. But I do think he is going to prevail. And I'm going to go a little bit closer than you. I'm going to go 6-3 to the Bully Boy.
And now we'll move on to our second guest of the week, and it's with the MC for the Euro Tour, Philip Brzezinski.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the head of sports and media at PDC Europe and the MC on the European Tour, Philip Brzezinski. Thanks very much for the time, Philip. How are you doing?
Pleasure, Alex. Thanks for having me. Doing great. Yourself?
Doing good, thank you, and good to have you on. And there is only one place to start, and that is looking back at last weekend, a milestone on the European Tour, the 100th event in Riesa. What did it mean to the team at PDC Europe to reach that number at the weekend?
Oh, it was a milestone indeed. You could tell, especially the guys that have been, with Werner from the start, since it began in 2012. You could really tell that it meant a lot to them. And especially when you look at, how humble the beginnings were and how much hard work and how much graft went into all of this. to now be at 100 events and to see how well the events have sold this year, how full the venues are with the fans. That's absolutely tremendous, and it was a special moment for everyone, really.
Well, we'll come back to the European tour later, but let's first rewind back. And for you, how did you get introduced to darts? Was it watching it on TV, seeing it in person? How did you get into the game?
Yeah, it was. The funny thing is actually that the first darts match I watched was the World Championship semi-final of the World's 2006 between Phil Taylor and Wayne Mardle. I think that went to a last leg decider. At least it went to a final set, and that was the first match I ever watched. And it was coincidentally the first darts match that Werner von Moltke first watched. So I was at the time, I don't know, 11, something like that. And I was hooked to it ever since. And like most German kids, I played football until I was 16, 17, and then picked up an injury. And after that, started playing darts because I'd watched it for a couple of years already. Really liked the sport, and that's how it all started for me.
So for you then, playing the game, was it more socially, or did you play in any tournaments? How far did you get playing darts yourself?
At the start, I took it seriously, and I played a couple of tournaments. I mean, Germany wide, and after I'd moved to Switzerland as well, I played there in the first division. But I was never really good enough to cut it for the big time. So I'm quite happy with where I am now.
That makes two of us. Well, we mentioned it at the start, your roles with PDC Europe. Before you joined the team there, did you have any other roles in darts?
No. In darts, as I said, I played darts. I've been on a couple of teams, but apart from that, no, that was the first time that I'd actually done something within the big time darts, let's say.
So was a career involved in darts something that you dreamt of doing? What jobs did you do before getting involved in darts?
Before I got involved in the darts, I studied media and communication science in Switzerland. And next to that, to earn a bit of money, I commentated on football for a radio station in Switzerland. So that's what I did before that. And then for the World Championships 2018, that was the year that Rob Cross won it. There was a small Swiss TV station, and they bought the rights for the last 4 days, I think it was, for the Worlds. And then they were looking for someone who knew a bit about darts and was able to commentate on it. And, that target group in Switzerland wasn't too big, lucky me. And so they contacted me, and I commentated on that. And this is how the contact to PDC Europe, came to be. And they asked me, well, could you imagine doing something like this for us on the stage? And I said, well, if you want to try it, I'd love to try it. And then I did the first couple of warm-ups in 2018, and now I'm here and couldn't be happier about it.
Good times. Well, let's get on to your roles with PDC Europe, and first of all, the head of sports and media. I'm guessing that's pretty similar to what Dave Allen does, the head of media at the PDC, but focusing more on events in Germany and the rest of Europe.
Yeah, exactly. So the media part of it is basically the same stuff that Dave does for PDC. And then on top of that, I'm taking care of the floor events that we're doing in Germany, or the floor events that are connected to the European Tour. So the host nation qualifiers, the associate member qualifiers, and also the development tour, challenge tour, and pro tour events that we're holding in Germany. So that's my work as well.
Well, darts in Germany, it's really grown over the last 10 years. And one run that we've got to mention was at Ali Pali last year and into this year. Gabriel Clemens reaching the semi-finals, and we saw the viewing figures in Germany towards the last few days. How much attention did Gabriel's run at the World Championship attract?
Oh, it was massive. It was massive, really. I mean, we're used to getting more media attention towards the end of the year. Obviously, when the World Championship is being played or just around the corner, that's when the mainstream media in Germany realizes, hey, there's this great sport, darts. We could cover that. And we were basically waiting for a German player to do as well as Gabriel did this year. And it was unbelievable, especially the couple of days after he'd made it to the semi-finals, all the requests that he personally received as well from media stations for interviews, this, that, and the other, and we've been in close contact with Gabriel and his girlfriend and manager Riesa, because they said, listen, we can't handle all of this. We're completely overrun by it all, and so we kind of jumped in there, jumped to their aid, and kind of took care of all the media business for him. And if we'd wanted to, we could have had him on a TV show for 4 weeks running after the World Championship, which obviously wasn't realistic. So we had to pick and choose a little bit. So it was really massive, and it was great to see darts getting so much media attention here in Germany.
Yeah, what a run it was. And there was a few rumours going around that Gabriel could be included in the Premier League this year. Obviously, you've got the night in Berlin. That's now well established on the Premier League calendar. But how close do you think we are to seeing a German player selected for that event? And what would that do for the game in Germany as well?
It would have been quite interesting to see what the decision would have been like had Gabriel made it to, let's say, the semi-finals of the Masters as well. I think it would have been in with a good shot on making the Premier League then. But to be honest with you, I think for him it's a good thing not to be in it yet, because I mean you know it as well. The Premier League has been quite difficult for a number of players in the past as well. You know if you're in there and if you're not ready for it, it can really shoot your self-confidence. So I think it's just the right thing now that he's not in yet. And, we'll see how he does this year. And we'll also see how Martin Schindler does, for example, because he's making moves and making waves on the European tour. So I don't know. We see how those guys do. If they can turn up at major events regularly and make semi-finals, quarterfinals, maybe along the line win one of them, or, then why not have a German Premier League player?
That's a fair point. Well, from the German number one and number two to two players who won their tour cards at Q School at the start of this year, Daniel Klose and Pascal Ruprecht. We've seen Pascal a couple of times on the Euro Tour already this year, but what can you tell our listeners about both of them players?
Well, with Pascal, it's actually, it was funny really, because to be honest with you, I had never heard of him before he came to Q School, and he'd only been playing darts for 1.5, 2 years before that. So I spoke to him, and for him it was also a last-minute decision to come to the Q School. So I'd never seen him before. I just, obviously, when we were playing, I looked at the stats and I looked at his results, and I thought, well, who is this guy, Pascal Ruprecht? And obviously, then you start walking around and you kind of watch him and have a look at how he does, and I could just see he's got a lovely throw. He's calm, he's collected, he's cool, and you know the results. He won this tour card comfortably. I mean, he didn't even have to play the last day, so that was really impressive. And I mean, my impression that I got of him the first couple of weeks or first couple of months now having the tour card, I think he's a very, very nice young lad, and I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. And we see how he does. I think he will do well, because he's got, as I said, a good throw about him, and does things in the right way. Gets his, he's doing this. Been taught to be a policeman at the moment. He's finishing that, and when he's finished with that, he can focus on the darts a little more. And Daniel Klose, he's well known. He's been in the Super League, in the German Super League, for a couple of years. Has had a couple of good results there. And to be honest with you, before Q School, he was one of the German players where I said I've got him very, very high on my list to win a tour card, because he played a couple of the Modus Super League events. And he looked really, really good there, and just a really good player, really calm, collected, and good to see, and good for him that he managed to win the tour card.
Definitely, yeah, two players to keep an eye on. And getting back to you then, speaking of the Euro Tour, a lot of our listeners will recognise your voice being the MC on the Euro Tour. Can you remember the first time you were MC, and what was that experience like?
I remember it very well. It was the first time I did it for PDC Europe was the German Super League final. It was live on Sport 1 back then. That was towards the end of the year of 2018. And the first time I did it on the European tour was in Leverkusen 2019. And I remember it so well. I was so nervous, and I completely messed up the first one. Not the players' walk-ons. I was so happy to get the players onto the stage without any incidents. Everything went fine. And then on the European tour, we introduced the referees as well. So in my head, I was already half of the stage. I was just happy. Okay, the players are here. Everything worked out. And was Kirk Bevins on stage with me. And I thought, okay, just introduce the referee. You can walk off stage. Deep breath, everything's fine. And I go, and please welcome on stage our referee for the first two matches, Mr. Kirk Shepherd. And I made two steps towards the end, towards the side of the stage, and I turned around and I looked at Kirk, because I knew Kirk well back then already. We'd already spoke many times, but it was just one of those names, Kirk Bevins, Kirk Shepherd. It just happened so naturally. And, now we have a good laugh about that one. But, that was the first time.
Well, as part of your role as MC, you also get to interview the players on stage after the matches. What have been the most memorable interviews that spring to mind over the years as well?
I think one very recent one was the Michael van Gerwen one last year in Gibraltar, after he'd played Jose de Sousa, when he had the little go at the special one for going, for trying to go double against him. So that was one. I mean, as you well know, interviews with Michael are never dull. There's never a dull moment with him. But apart from that, obviously when you interview the Germans after a big win on a German stage, at times you can barely hear yourself think when they're chanting for Martin Schindler or Gabriel Clemens. That's very, very loud. And just now actually in Riesa, where Nico Springer was talking about dedicating the win to his late grandmother, which was a very emotional thing. These are the sort of moments that you do remember.
And more recently, away from the Euro Tour, you've also been the MC for a few of the bigger events as well, including some of the games at the European Championship last year. How did that come about?
Matt Porter approached me and asked whether I would be all right with doing that, whether I wanted to do that, and I said I'd love to do it, and so we did it, and that was it was a great experience for me. It was one of the few times that I was wearing one of those in-ears where you can actually hear everything that's been spoken about, between the directors and things like that, everyone who's important for a broadcast. And then I thought, I was waiting for my cue, and they just told me, you just stand there, wait, and then as soon as you hear QMC, that's when you start talking. So I was waiting and I was listening, and then they QMC, they said, and I thought, I hope they stop talking now. Because I'm talking and I don't want to hear them in my ear, but they don't stop talking. You just have to kind of block it out and ignore them and just say your part. So it was a great experience, in the Westfalenhalle in Dortmund, a great arena, and it was great fun. I loved it.
Good to hear. And you posted on social media as well, thanking John McDonald, the PDC MC, helped you guide through it. What's it like spending time with John and learning from someone like him who's been there and done it for so many years now as well?
Oh, I mean, that for someone like me who's compared to John, relatively new to the job, it's obviously fantastic, and I can learn a lot from him. And I said there's never a dull moment in a Michael van Gerwen interview. There's also never a dull moment when John McDonald's around. He's always a fun story to tell, and he's got a great way of kind of relaxing you when he kind of feels you're a bit nervous, and obviously you are before doing the first couple of walk-ons on the big stage at a major event. But that was just great, to have those couple of words of encouragement from him.
You get one of the best views in the venues when the players are walking out on the stage. But if you had to make that walk, what song would you walk out to?
Well, I'm going to give one away here now, because I've always wanted to suggest that song to one of the German players. Whenever one of them makes the big time, let's say qualifies for or is being picked for the Premier League, and when they're playing massive venues like every other week, I would go for the song. I don't know if you know it. The song is called Wunderbar by Tenpole Tudor. And I was just imagining, because there are a couple of German words that every English-speaking person knows, and I think Wunderbar is one of them. It's just a famous German word. And if you don't know the song, listen to it. The whole chorus is basically one word. It's only Wunderbar. And I'm imagining a 12,000 people arena in the UK, German player walking on, and everybody singing Wunderbar. It would be fantastic. And one day, if a German player makes it to the Premier League, I'm going to suggest that song to them. And if they're clever, they'll pick it.
Well, you heard it here first when that does come around. Well, we touched on it earlier. We've had 100 Euro tours in the books. My co-host Burton and I, we picked out some of our favourite moments on the show this week. But what memories stick out for you?
Funnily enough, the first European tour event that I had an official duty for the PDC Europe, where I did the first warm-up. So that's the 10 minutes before the actual show starts, because they're not going to give you the MC role straight away. They just want to see how you react to the stage and if you can handle it. So I did the first 10 minutes before the show, and that was the European tour event in Hamburg in 2018. And that was where Michael van Gerwen broke the Ross Smith curse. So after, I think it was nearly exactly 5 years without a 9-darter on the European tour, Michael hit one in Hamburg, and I was somewhere upstairs. I wasn't actually watching the match at that moment, and then I could just hear the crowd erupt, and we were all running towards the windows where we could look into the arena, and we knew immediately when we heard the noise that a 9-darter must have been hit. And it was Michael who did it, I think, in a match against, was it Ryan Joyce back then? I think it was. And that was a special moment that I remember very well, yeah.
A good choice. And just a few more before we let you go. And looking ahead, we've got the World Cup coming up in June, a revamped World Cup with the move to all pairs. We've got more teams, the group stage to start as well. What did you make of the changes when you saw them?
Well, first of all, the change to only having pairs matches, I think that's something that, had been, fans and players had wanted it for a long time. So I think that's a great move. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing more pairs games because, we only see it at the World Cup of Darts. And I think it's just one of those aspects that makes the World Cup really, really special. And as far as the group stages go, it's a lot of groups. It's going to be a lot of matches. We've got an extra session as well for this World Cup. So we see how that goes. I think it's also fantastic for the smaller nations because let's be honest. Usually when they arrive at the World Cup of Darts, they get one game, they get beat, and then they go home again. And some of them, that come from Asia, they spend more time on the plane than actually in Germany playing the thing. So it's going to be good for them as well to get a bit of stage experience. And I'm personally really, really looking forward to this year's World Cup of Darts, just seeing more pairs matches. And as you well know, it's great for the players. It's a completely different animal for them as well when they put on this, the shirt with their their country's flag on it. You can just tell they're so much more tense. It means a lot more to them than when it's only than when they're only playing for themselves.
Definitely. Well, we've also got a debut coming up later this year in Poland on the World Series, and we often get asked, and I'm sure you do, about the future of the Euro Tour. Could we see new countries introduced? Can you give us any insight into possible locations that PDC Europe might be looking into for the future?
Well, I can't give you details, obviously, but I think if I tell you that over the next couple of years we are going to see new venues, we are going to see new countries. That is, we always said that that is one of the big goals of the PDC Europe to establish the darts in in more European countries than where we're playing at the moment. So we can definitely look forward to a couple of new countries in the next couple of years.
Excellent. And just lastly, we've got to mention away from darts, the video that Dan Dawson posted a few months ago now, back in the press room, of you reacting to watching your team, the New York Jets, play, and it didn't look like it was going well. So aside from the Jets, are there any other sport teams that you support, and are they doing any better than the Jets?
Usually with the New York Jets, it's heartbreak. So that's the usual that's the usual me that you see when the New York Jets are playing. Well, obviously I've got my childhood football team in Germany, that is Bayer Leverkusen. I've supported them ever since I was 4 years old, so that's never going to change. And funnily enough, I've got a football team in England that I started supporting when I was 7, because they were really, really fantastic back then. Made it to the Champions League semi-finals back then. That is Leeds United. So that's another connection between me and Dave Allen. Not only the same job, but also the same football team that we support.
Brilliant. Well, Philip, it's a pleasure to chat to you. We do appreciate your time, and we wish you all the best for the rest of the year, your roles in PDC Europe and the MC as well.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's been a pleasure, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks to Philip for joining us this week. Now we'll finish up with a trio of listener questions. We'll do these rapid fire. Me maybe a little bit more rapid fire than you, because I completely forgot that we had listener questions when I was doing my prep earlier. So it was literally 5 minutes ago while we took a break from recording that I first looked at these. So apologies to everyone for my off-the-cuff answers here, because I just forgot to look at these questions. But we do have 3 of them. They're good questions. First one comes from Michael Callahan. It's one that actually we had on the spreadsheet last week, but decided to push it to this week. So I was ready for this one. And he asked, is there any reason disabled darts players don't get talked about in the UK compared to other countries? Holland and Belgium are fantastic players and are all noticed in their countries, but how many can you name in the UK? And I guess this question's more for you, because you know what people talk about in the UK more than I do.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, and I've got to say, I think there should be some more publicity for disability darts, and we've had a few guests on over the years on the show. I think back to our early years, and we had 2 of the guys that played in the UK's Disability Darts World Cup team. You had Snowy Dyson, that's a name that you're not going to forget, and Ricky Chilton, and more recently we had Kwang Cho on, the WDDA World Champion. I think that was early 2020, and a couple of years ago we've had a tournament director, Liz McLean, on it as well. She is involved with the WDDA World Championships and World Cup. But yeah, it's definitely something I think we should look to maybe get more guests on, get them a bit more exposure. And the PDC, we've seen them get involved a little bit last year. They supported the WDDA. They hosted their World Match Play finals on the stage at the Winter Gardens, and Michael also got in touch with some good links to share as well, and I'll give a mention to both of them. You've got BritishDisabilityDarts.co.uk/events and WorldParadarts.com/calendar, so do go and check those sites out. And he also mentioned that the next British ranking tournament is going to be in St Helens next week, the 15th to the 16th of April. So go and check that out if you want to get involved, and I'll be having a look through those sites, and maybe we'll try and get on someone nearer the time of one of their bigger events, give them a bit more exposure, because they do a great job, and the more we can shine a light on it, the better.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. And obviously darts is not a big sport in the US, so the fact that no one in the US talks about disability darts is also because no one talks about any darts, so to turn the question on the US. But I think the US is even further behind most of the rest of the world in recognizing athletes with disabilities. It was only the Rio Games that we for the Olympics where we first had live coverage of the Paralympics. We had tape delayed minimal coverage at the prior games, and that's either summer or winter, and some of those have been in the US's time zone. You couldn't watch live from the Vancouver Winter Games in 2010 for the Paralympics, because the US is just not, until recently, started to recognize disability athletes at all. Obviously the UK is miles ahead of that. The London Olympics, I know, and Paralympics went a big way toward that. And hopefully darts will start to catch up. As you mentioned, we've had a few of the players on. We've talked about it before, around like when the Winmar was having the event. Maybe it's something that, it's a good question to direct to us. Why don't we discuss it more? And that's something that I think we should try to do, because our goal is to talk about darts full stop. Obviously, we focus primarily on the PDC, but we want to keep an eye out on everyone who plays. And there are some fantastic players with disabilities who we've not been talking about as much as we should. But I'll I will mostly leave it to you because you know who gets talked about in the UK, and hopefully eventually there's some disability darts of note in the US and in North America as well.
Let's hope so. Well, let's get to our next listener question. It comes from a long-time listener, John Thompson, who says, with Kazoo announcing a £700 million loss last year after a £500 million loss the year before, at what point do we get concerned about the PDCs or Matchroom as a whole, TBH, lack of sponsor diversity?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to know that I made 1.2 billion more pounds the last 2 years combined than Kazoo did. So maybe I can start sponsoring some events. Beyond that, I don't know. If they're able to pay their bills, then I don't think the PDC will be too worried. And if they stop paying their bills, I still don't think the PDC will be too worried because they can get out of those contracts and find other willing and ready sponsors. Obviously, Kazoo, we don't know exactly what they offered the PDC, but I'm sure they've offered quite a bit of cash and therefore outbid everyone else. But there are other companies waiting. We've also seen the PDC now start to try to get more diversity anyway, not just having gambling companies sponsor their events. I think it's something to look at. If the Kazoo name and brand becomes a liability, I think the PDC will not renew and will look at other sources. But I think right now I wouldn't be too concerned, especially because even if there is a reason to be concerned, there would be someone ready to fill the spot if something goes wrong.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And looking at the PDC website, under tournaments, you've got 7 of their biggest tournaments all sponsored by Kazoo: the World Championship, the Masters, the Premier League, the UK Open, and then later in the year, the European Championship, the Grand Slam, and the Players' Championship finals. But I thought it was a bit interesting. The World Cup, which was sponsored by Kazoo last year, no longer, according to the PDC website. I don't know if they've got another sponsor coming on board for this year, but you'd think that there's going to be people that want to get involved in that tournament. Given the changes, it seems that the World Cup's got a bit more excitement and buzz around it than previous years. But you mentioned the diversity as well, and we've had in the past as well the drink J20, some might know it as J2O, that was sponsored the PDC for a little while, and the PDC, they've moved away from the gambling sponsors a few years ago now, and that seemed to be quite well received by most darts fans. There's still talks, I think, of gambling sponsorship being banned or maybe restrictions coming in. I believe front of football shirts is one area that's being talked about, and that's something that's been ongoing for a few years now. But we saw the PDC, they were proactive. They saw potential restrictions coming in and they moved away and they found other sources. And I think if the deal with Kazoo ends up going wrong, then they will be looking elsewhere for other sponsors. And yeah, I think that's a bit of a red flag for a company to lose that amount of money. But I'm sure the PDC, they've got their eye on it, and if they do end up going with someone else, I think there's going to be plenty of people that will want to get involved in the darts and be a sponsor. So we'll see how this one develops, I think.
And our last question comes from James from EC Dart Squad, and he asks, what do you think was the greatest finish of all time?
What a question this is, and I was saying it off air, question of the year so far for me. But before I get to my own choices, I did mention it off air before we started recording here, and Paul Nicholson got in touch. One for you, Burton, is that 160 by Suljovic v Barney in his Champions League campaign. It was simply outrageous, with RVB on a double after 9. The crowd and the production team were left aghast. A much forgotten moment. That was from the asset Paul Nicholson. A few of our listeners getting in touch as well, and got to give this one a mention. Connor Ellis, a teammate of mine at the retreat, Fiver is going to be in the post. He did tweet treble 10 surround ball for 80, which is a checkout that I managed to do in front of him, so that was a good one. Oscar says that Taylor 132 is up there, the 132 in the match play to beat James Wade in the final. Tobias said Della 138 immediately comes to mind. And last one from our listeners, Boris the Chinchilla, probably the best name we've had this week, says Sulovic's 161 against Van Gerwen was just beautiful, and that was of course our checkout of the year for 2022. And we could probably make a whole episode just firing back with memorable checkouts over the years, and I think they're all great shouts. And of course, as a Peter Wright fan, got to mention that 140 against Noel Malikdom, the 302, the 162 to leave the 140, then taking it out, was in huge trouble in that game, his first game of the World Championship, and 2 weeks later he is the world champion. So maybe in terms of best finish and the context on what they went on to go and achieve in that tournament, maybe that is number one. But I'm going to go with the 138 from Keith Deller, 40 years on this year, and it still stands the test of time. I don't know if that's because every other tweet Keith Deller mentions it or he's got 138 on his shirt, but in terms of its longevity, if you can name another checkout from 1983 without going on YouTube to look through the archive, I'll be amazed. And I think that longevity for me gives it the edge. I'm going to go Keith Deller's 138 to beat Eric Bristow and become world champion 40 years ago.
Yeah, some really good choices there. We, as you mentioned, we did talk off air about it. I had mentioned that 160 from Silovic to beat Barty as well. So glad to see that the Acid and I are thinking similarly. I don't know if I put that number one, but it's definitely one that's in the conversation. Mensah has a few in the conversation. You also mentioned that 116 against MVG last year at the World Championships, but I wouldn't even say that that's the best 161 or the most amazing 161 Silovic ever hit, because his famous 9-dart leg in the Austrian Super League was 170, 170, 161, a 9-darter with three doubles, three bulls in that finish, ending on the 161. I think that has to be mentioned just for how, well, absurd it was. Just trying to think of some others. You mentioned the 138. You mentioned, obviously, the 140 that Peter Wright took out against Noel Malcolm. The 140 Rob Cross took out against Phil Taylor in the final. But I'll mention just one more from a world final that's easy to overlook the significance of because it was so early in the match. It was in the second set. It was in the third leg of the second set. But it was a checkout that did turn the match around. It saved the set. It ended up leading to a set win for the person who was a set down. And before you know it, was ahead in that match and was well ahead and eventually became world champion. And that was the greatest leg of all time, the 141 checkout for Michael Smith after MVG missed the double for 141 himself. I think that has to be in the conversation. It's easy to forget it for the best finish of all time because it was the best leg of all time. But just even in the circumstances, it was the best, one of the best finishes of all time because it was a critical moment. It saved the set and eventually led to Michael Smith winning the set. And I don't know if he wins that match. In fact, I would think he doesn't win that match if he doesn't take that 141 out. That's why I'm going to put that in the conversation as well. But just one more, since we are talking about the greatest finish of all time. It might be a small one. It was just 40, but it was the greatest 40 of all time. And that was Andrew Gilding a few weeks ago to win the UK Open. Anything else for this week?
Oh, I love both of them. And yeah, maybe in 40 years' time, we will be still talking about that 9-dart leg from Michael Smith. Well, I've got to say, as always, thank you to our guests for joining us, to Jules, to Philip for their time. Thanks to our sponsor, Dartwolf, for their continued support. If you want more Dynamite Darts content, head on over to dartwolf.tv. Give Dartwolf a follow on Twitter as well, at Dartwolf180. Shout out to our other sponsor as well, Beer 52. If you want a free crate of beer, cover the postage, beer52.com/darts. And as always, thank you to everyone for listening. We'll be back next week. Should we come back next week? Of course, we'll be back for episode 300, another milestone for this show, but we'll speak more about that next week. So until then, thanks to everyone for the support. Enjoy the rest of the week and enjoy the darts.
But in case anyone was wondering, we did start our 19s for this week's show in case we didn't hit the treble so that we could still go ahead and leave a finish. But yeah, and we'll be back next week for episode 300 starting on 20s. I can't believe we're up to 300. I remember the big deal we made for episode 100. Never thought we'd make that. Here we are 4 years, one pandemic later, and we're just 1 week away from episode 300. Hang tight for that, and while you're hanging tight, enjoy some darts.